video we're going to be going over a French braid, but we're doing it on half of the head. So I've got my relaxed middle part here, and we're going to do the braid following this diagonal trajectory down. So in between here, this middle point, and then once we get towards the back of the head, right, we're going to straighten it out. Boom. So I'm not going to do this super tight. I'm just going to do it kind of classic, a little bit relaxed. You can decide whatever you want to do. This first section is an important section. If you want the braid to start really close to the head, you need to take a smaller triangle because it's going to start where the part line is. So you need to determine whether you want to start way back here or really close. I'm going to do kind of in the middle. Like I said, I'm just going to do kind of classic, casual French braid. So we're going to start the same way we do a normal French braid. Sections of 3. Make sure your sections are as even as possible. I'm going to start with the one that's closest to the face, folding inward, and again, fold. Yes? So then I can start my French braid part. Switch this over, grab a little bit of hair. I start wider here and get narrow more towards the braid. That way that this hair covers my parting as I pull it back. Yeah, so it covers that. So then I can pull a little together if I need to tighten it and cross over. I'm going to use a comb on this section because it's harder to grab the hair that's in the center over here. It's up to you, whatever you want to do to get parting. So now I add it to my middle section here. Yeah. I covered this in the regular French braid section, so if you need more detail, you can go to that one. So I want to keep my hand position going in the direction that I'm going. If I start pulling my hand over here, it's going to go that direction. If I start pulling it back towards the center part, it's going to travel there. So keeping that in mind when you're holding your braid. So now, switch. And I'm going to use my comb on this side. Once we get behind the ear, we can start pivoting our sections a little bit so that they can start kind of angling back. Yes, so now that we're here, I'm gonna start taking a little bit more parallel to the ground, as you can see here, so that I can start flattening out this braid as I go towards the back of the head. If I stay with this kind of motion, it's going to create a funny look. So I'm going to slowly start angling my sections a little bit differently. Yes, and just transfer over. So I'm going to go a little more parallel to the head. I'm sorry, the floor, this section. And just keep going down the head. As the head rounds off, you're going to need to decide whether you're going to start pulling away or keep your hand in. Yeah, so here or tuck it in. Naturally your hand is going to want to start pulling away, so you've got to consciously think about staying closer to your braid. So I'm going to speed this up a little because I think you've gotten the gist of the braid, so I'm going to speed this up. We are going to do the braid on the opposite side so you can see how to match them, because you want them to look the same on the right and the left. So my doll head's really wanting to lean back on me, so I've got to really keep my hand in. And this is my last section on the right and the left. And we can traditional braid this out. So now that we're done with this side, we can do the other one. Yes, so there's our French braid on this side, as you can see, boom, and it's down. So now we're going to do it on the other side. And when we start this section, we really want to mirror this triangular section. So if I'm going to tilt, I can see, I'm going to move this so you can see, right? There is where I started my part. So that is where I'm going to take my first diagonal. Then if you can see in through here, this is my second parting. So when I take my second portion, I need to grab from the same areas so that the braid looks even. So we're going to start with our same triangular section, ending where that same triangle ended. And we've got to keep our hands on the same line. So we don't want this to go down and this one to go up. So we need to constantly be checking and seeing if we're in balance with the first side that we did. So away from the face, in, and now we can start our French braid away from the face. Yes, and just keep going back. So when I take this section on the inside, I want to take it to the same level as my last section on the other side. Yeah, so if I'm going to tilt this, you can see that it lines up with the last section that I took on that side. So section 3 on this is the same as section 3 on this. And continue. You can also take larger sections or smaller sections if you want. It's just personal preference. Mechanics are the same. So once you understand the mechanics of the braid, you can play around with whether you take small sections, big sections, you make it tight to the head, you angle the sections differently. That's just creative input there. And there are many variations to that braid. So as you notice, I'm constantly combing this hair down here because these little loops, as I'm passing the hair back and forth, will start to tangle my other hair. So constantly raking that. And just make sure you're gentle about it. I don't have to be gentle on my doll head. But when you have a client and they have little tangles, you need to be a little bit more slow so you don't just, rip on their hair. So these outside sections, by outside I mean out here, are a little less particular as to whether they match the left side because they're so far from one another. But on this section on the inside, it's a little bit more important, especially if you have a clean part like this. So here's where that one ends, so I'm going to take it at the same width. Yes, so that way when someone's looking directly at that clean parting, they can see that they're somewhat even. You don't have to be crazy about it, but you do want to be clean because you don't want them to look loppy. The more clean the braid, the more obvious that's going to be. The messier, looser braids, they're not going to show as much. So now we can continue our braid down. I'm not going to go too far down. And you can see, yes, so we want those lines to line up here. Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be somewhat, and you can see these start at the same place here and they head back in the same direction. So you can imagine if this one went this way and this one went higher up, it would start to look a little funny. So you need to set your markers and follow them, and then constantly be checking on your right and your left side. A good tip for this is to do your side that you're not as good at first, because your stronger side, your better side, can mimic the other side better. So you don't want to do this perfect braid and then you can't replicate it. You want to do kind of your worst side and then you can easily replicate that. So that's a good tip for doing your braids. Always do your worst side first.